Hey guys, today I'm going to do a Daiso art challenge, which is like a dollar store art challenge where you go to the dollar store and get some cheap stuff and try to make quality art from it. And Daiso is like a dollar store, but it's like a $2 an item store, and it's all imported Japanese stuff. Which is why I was holding out for when we went to Daiso, because I figured it would be more interesting. So I wanted to get enough to make a whole piece of art, so I started with this watercolor pad, even though I desperately do not need any more watercolor. And I don't know if this is cheating because it's not like $1, because this is $4. The best dollar stores are the ones that don't keep things exactly under $1, so maybe it's not much of a challenge. But I don't particularly care that much about the quality of watercolor paper, so I'm not worried about this. This is probably just fine as long as it is absorbent. Alright, and so I got this beautiful watercolor paint set. This is Daiso brand, and I bet you it doesn't look anything like this. I decided to pick it out because this looked kind of promising. And I realized that that's probably just like a stock picture of some art that someone did with completely different paints, I bet you. These are the colors. And I don't know. I'm suspicious about this because looking through the window, they kind of look like those paints that you get from the those old wooden paint sets that look like briefcases. So I'm a little bit wary. Also, the colors themselves, like the yellow ochre, this light orange, sort of implies to me that these are not transparent watercolors. They're probably more like tempera, but we'll find out, right? Get the box. Et voila. And they are plastic tubes, which surprises me. It makes me think, that's what made me think of those 90s kits. Because for whatever reason, I was expecting, you know, your typical foil tubes. They're not. I'm really excited to try these out. Next, I have these oil pastels, and I only bought them because of how colorful this packaging is. And I haven't used oil pastels since high school. I was more of a chalk pastel person, but I just gave my chalk pastels away a few years ago, so I'm like, I'm not buying more chalk pastels because I just gave them away. But yep, I'm more concerned about like light fast quality and stuff like that. Finally, I got this water pen because all the paintbrushes there looked really terrible, like worse than my standard dollar store paintbrushes. But they had this, and you know, $2 a brush is pretty cheap for a water brush. I'm pretty sure when they first started popping up, they were like 14 bucks a piece. Like the one I have is $14 a piece. I never use it because it, you know, it's a nylon brush, so it stops being pointy after a while. But I feel pretty confident about this. This looks not bad at all. Oh, look at that. It doesn't look particularly good. I like my brushes pointed, and this one's even kind of on an angle, like it's installed sideways. That's funny. $2 though, man. $2 if you're into water brushes. Since the quality of the paper can actually really affect everything, I decided I wanted to get oriented with it a little bit. And so I'm using my regular core watercolors on the cheap Selectum paper just to see what the difference is, so that I can expect it when I'm trying out the paints. Everything that I bought for this video was $2 except for this paper, which was $4, which is kind of funny considering what I'm about to experience. It kinda sucks as a watercolor paper, but it's definitely more functional than like printer paper and, you know, like light sketchbook paper and all sorts of stuff that I used to use in high school when I had no watercolor paper. Although I really wasn't impressed by this paper at all. I'm actually kind of surprised by how unimpressed I am with it. Like, it doesn't hold on to the color. As soon as it dries, it goes pale. I also noticed that the fibers on the surface would break down and roll around a little bit. The parts that I really drenched with water showed little spots, like little dark spots. But the worst part about this paper is that I can't lift any color or blend any color. So as soon as the color goes down, if you have a hard edge, that's it. You're not going to get that off. And you're not going to be able to spread it around after it dries. So I would probably classify this paper as kind of a mixed media. I tried to compare it with this Strathmore paper that I have, and the results weren't super different, other than the fact that I could get proper lift and I can do actual watercolor techniques with Strathmore. Although in hindsight, I don't think that this particular pack of Strathmore, I think this is the Vision watercolor, I don't remember it being particularly spectacular either, so maybe I should have picked a much nicer watercolor to get a more dramatic difference. And I used the water brush for this. I didn't really notice anything unusual about it other than the fact that it isn't, pointed enough for me personally. It's also kind of uncomfortable to hold. But compared to other water brushes that I've had, including the one that costs $14, it's actually almost identical. Like, it didn't leak or anything. It didn't feel any different. It's definitely just a tool that you use when you're just out and about and you don't have access to your regular, cup of water, and it's awkward, or maybe you're on a bus or something. I would never personally use a water brush at home. So if you want a water brush, these like Daiso ones, totally great, and they cost a heck of a lot less than $14. And I knew that I wasn't really expecting much from these watercolor paints, seeing as they were $2. So I really didn't have my hopes up. When I opened the bottle and squeezed the paint out, I got a little bit optimistic because it came out okay. It wasn't pasty or weird. It separated a little bit, but nothing unusual. Okay, so as soon as I started using these paints, I realized why they were $2. It felt like I was painting with pudding. It really did. It was this weird, puddingy, gooey texture. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Liquitex Basics, and these paints were barely water soluble at all. I could not get a gradient with these swatches. I even made like a puddle of water and touched the tip of the paintbrush into it to see how it spread, and it didn't spread at all. It literally just sits in the water like a little ball of goo. And I compare it to the core watercolors, which shoot out from the paintbrush immediately and dye the puddle blue. Like, that's what it's supposed to do. And I'm trying to start with my light colors, these yellows, and it feels so uncomfortable trying to use these paints in some way, even though the paper doesn't want to move the paint around. The paint itself doesn't want to move around. This paintbrush is so uncomfortable to hold, and it's not pointed enough to do little corners. So I gotta say, the process for this was a disaster. I was not having any fun at all. But to be honest, I actually don't hate this painting. I thought that this was a disaster, that I should just cancel the video. There's no way that I can demonstrate that you can make a piece of art with the cheapest stuff you can find. But you know what? I actually kind of like it. I had some background leaves with some purples, and one thing I did notice about these paints is that the colors mix together fine. Like, they mix together fine on the palette. I don't know how well it would be if you're doing it in the water puddle, but if you're mixing like full intensity colors together, I had no problem. I actually found these easier to mix together than dollar store acrylic paints. Like, I'm surprised actually by that. And so while these paints are not transparent enough to glow, you can see like the dirt area in the pot is still quite flat and gross looking. It's not bad. I mean, for like a study or something like creative, like an art journaly thing, if you just want to make art, these dollar store items won't really hold you back, apparently. I actually kind of like these. The big catch, though, is that these colors are probably not color fast, so they're probably gonna fade away, so we wouldn't be able to make permanent art with them, which is kind of a shame because I also tried these oil pastels. And I haven't actually used oil pastels since high school. I hated it then because they don't smudge that good. And these ones are not an exception. They don't smudge at all, but I like the texture of them. As soon as I added pastel to the more kind of boring parts that were bothering me, like the flower pot and a little bit of shading in some of the leaves, I just had so much fun doing it. I really liked the look that I got. I really enjoyed this part of it, to the point where I almost colored over the whole thing with pastel because I didn't want to stop. And the background is just a mess because I just wanted to feel it. It was very like a creamy feeling, and I'm sure that I could find some amazing oil pastels, and maybe the fact that I have never used amazing oil pastels is the reason why I'm able to enjoy these particular ones so much. But I can definitely see myself continuing to use these in my art journal or something. And if it wasn't for the oil pastels, I would have just completely scrapped this whole thing. I really would have. So if you're feeling kind of bummed that you don't have the latest and greatest and most expensive art materials to play with, I really hope that this sort of demonstrates that you can have fun and do interesting stuff with anything. Like, yes, really high quality art materials is important if you want your art to last a long time and if you want to learn all of the techniques that are out there for you to learn. But, practice skills and imagination, creativity, all that other stuff that comes from within you is pretty important too. My cat is meowing endlessly. So let me know in the comments what kind of interesting things have you tried out and were surprised by the quality of it. Hook us up. I hope you had some fun, and I will see you next time.